The United States advance, even though they lost last night. How are the North American coaches dealing with the press at this World Cup? And we touch on a couple Major League Soccer stadium updates, that and more on Friday's edition of Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kickaround, the show that dots the map of the ever-changing American soccer landscape. My name, Robert Kerr, a local soccer guy. And to my side, Jason Davis, a radio soccer guy. How you feeling? How you doing? Welcome all.
You came out hot this morning, Rob. You were fired up out of the gate, and your dog's ready to go too. I can tell. Your dog's feeling Friday, which I didn't know it was Friday. I'm glad you told me because I keep forgetting what day it is. Because the World Cup is a lot, Rob. It's a lot. But I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here with the Ultras. Shout out to all of our people. A homeless shoe, number one, out the gates. First to arrive, Tim McDuff. We've got Callan Reese. We got our guy Dwayne. Yes.
I was going to say our guy Jeff, who's later on the list, rarely beaten to the first spot.
Rarely beaten to number one. Jeff, what happened? Are you slipping? It's the World Cup. You got to keep your game up. No, I'm kidding. Of course, love you, Jeff. Bill Barrett, Matt. I play French horn, Bill Barrett again, and Tulsa Mario in the building, and Billy Bob Western, all the Bobs. Shout out to all the Bobs and the Bills and whatever else Bs we got. Matt, you got a couple, got a B in there. Never mind. Continue, Rob.
The Council of Bobs convening here on a Friday morning. And shout out to Bill and Soccer Zombie, our friends there in the Discord server representing out in Peoria, Illinois. They were rocking the Morning Kickaround kits.
Nice.
At a local soccer level. And get this for a sentence. It's hard to convince people to go, hey, do you want to spend your Saturday night in Flint, Michigan? And that's just what I'm doing tomorrow night as a table-topping clash in USL 2 here in local ball. Probably not everyone here to get in on Great Lakes Division action. We are going to talk World Cup, MLS stadiums, and some curious coach reactions, including some very strange comments from one Jesse Marsch. Maybe he's a secret agent working incognito for the Americans. We shall see. But I mentioned the Morning Kickaround Discord server where guys are showing off their soccer in the wild, and you can get access to that by becoming an MK Ultra. $3.99 a month gets you priority commenting on screen during these live shows. You get access to bonus content, and then you get into the Morning Kickaround Discord server, which is a great and budding community where people are detailing their travels to various different cities, whether it be local ball or World Cup games. Talk about Major League Soccer, USL, kit culture. A lot of people showing off their kits and kits from around the world, as well as Ultras creating clubs or on the way to creating clubs. So fascinating stuff. $3.99 a month gets you all of that. But if you don't have those spare dollars, do a like, a share, anything like that. Spread the word of Morning Kickaround.
Do the thumbs up thing. Give us a thumbs up. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. Let's boost those numbers. Feel like we've had a big slowdown in subscriptions to the channel. And the algorithm and YouTube and all that stuff. We're just a little soccer show trying to make our way in the world, and we need your help to do that. So please, by the power of the word of mouth, spread Morning Kickaround, and maybe we'll get to 10,000 subscribers before the end of this World Cup tournament.
Yeah, that's definitely a goal. I think we need like 650 more subscribers or something like that. And, it goes in spurts and waves. We've hit thousands in a week or so. And then, maybe it slows down a little bit. Plenty of distractions right now as the World Cup rages on. You and I both full of other commitments. And it's a little bit cliche, but it really does take a village, both in life and on here on the YouTube. So any sort of spreading of the word, much appreciated from Jason and myself. If you forgot, we have a store. Morning Kickaround is on Fourth Wall. So go find some articles of clothing. The second run of Morning Kickaround merch. Do we have any update on that on the kits?
We do have tracking on that. I haven't tracked it. I'm not sure exactly where it is in the country or outside the country, or how these things work, but our guy Mark has sent me a tracking number. So we will hopefully be very soon sending out the next run of the morning kick around jersey, the second run. For those of you who missed out on the first run or ordered the first run and then it didn't get to you for various reasons, some of them human error, some of them not, we will get those out to you as well. I'm excited for people to get their hands on this jersey, Rob.
But the other merchandise available, such as the Mr. Bob mug and hoodless sweatshirts, t-shirts, and all that, much quicker turnaround, not the custom deal that these very special morning kick around kits have. So if you need any apparel, go to morning kick around on fourthwall.com. And there's also ko-fi.com/morning kickground if you'd like to donate to the show outside of the YouTube hemisphere. And then, so we already went over today's topics, and we might do a bonus today, right? Did we talk bonus?
Yes. So when we get into it, we're going to talk about what happened with the U.S. men's national team last night and Mauricio Pochettino going in front of the press and getting a little spicy. If you are so inclined, we are going to do a watch along of the full Mauricio Pochettino press conference from last night. So if that's your bag, either join us after as a member or become a member so you have access to that. We'll make sure we post it for all the members as well.
All right. Let's get into Friday's edition of Morning Kick Ground. Let's go. Welcome on in. We're going to start the show with World Cup stories. So remind you guys that World Cup coverage is brought to you by Oakland County Football Club, celebrating 10 years of summer soccer in Southeast Michigan in 2026. Tickets to the home finale, the regular season finale, July 10th. Tickets are on sale on Oakland County FC's website. And for interviews, highlights, and some golazzos and some highlights, visit Oakland County on the Instagram and other social media pages. I already mentioned we're going on the road to Flint City tomorrow to take on the table-topping Flint City Bucks. But last night, USA downed by Turkey 3-2 in a game that was an adventure, but ultimately didn't really affect anything. USA already winning the group. Turkiye already out. Obviously, it doesn't feel good in the moment, but does it matter?
It doesn't matter in the terms of their standing in the table, as you just described. It doesn't matter in terms of where they land in the round of 32. They already knew basically by the end of that game that it was going to be Bosnia and Herzegovina that they will take on, I believe, in Santa Clara, California on July 1st, rather. So that was none of that was affected by the performance. I think the question that people have is whether or not you risk bringing down the vibes a bit if you lose that game. The U.S. rotated almost entirely. It was nine changes from the Australia game.
Changes.
And honestly, I know it's technically 9 changes because Pochettino ran out a 2-striker system against the Aussies with Ricardo Pepi alongside Fowler and Balogun. But I think we all kind of believe that if he was putting out the team he really wanted to put out, Ricardo Pepi would be on the bench and not starting for the U.S. men's national team, that this would be a 1-striker setup. So if you go back to the Paraguay game and think of that as the first 11, then it was 10 changes. The only player who was a holdover from all 3 games, Weston McKennie, who was pretty good last night. Probably I don't love that he played 85 minutes of that game or whatever it was, but Weston McKennie was good last night. So he's fine. There's no team on the planet that is going to be as good from one game to the next with 9 changes. I'm sorry. It just doesn't exist. Now, there are teams who have incredible world-class depth who could probably still beat a Turkiye that also rotated a bit, by the way, from their last game against Paraguay. They made 7 changes, I think. But, Arda Güler was in the team and Yilmaz was in the team. And, so there was this sense that Turkey was kind of going for it to reclaim some pride before they got on the plane and went back home. whereas the United States was clearly resting their best players, their first choice players, and the guys on yellows and all those things. So if you want to just be intellectual about it, that's not a big deal, right? Now, if you care about sort of this general unknowable sense of vibes, then maybe it came down a bit. And we're going to go, again, we're going to watch back the entire Mauricio Pochettino press conference because I think it's a fascinating window into Poch and the relationship with the press and everything else. We're going to do that after the main show with the bonus show. So if you're not a member, become a member. But I do have a taste of what Pochettino said last night, queued up from a question by Tom Bogert. Let me see if I can get this to work.
Tom Bogert from The Athletic in English.
Yes.
So the team got off to a great start with the first 2 wins to seal first place in the group. You go into the knockout rounds, I'm sure, wanting to win all 3 games. Is there any worry that you lost any momentum in this third game today? Thank you.
If you explain what means momentum, that topic is a topic that I don't understand the momentum. Which is the momentum? To play with the same team and that we play again Australia and to take the risk to receive a yellow card and not to play tomorrow or the next game, to miss some player or to risk some player that maybe have some problems or circumstance. Or I don't understand the momentum. Germany lose the momentum too. I'm playing with the same team that I think only one change or one substitution from. I don't know. Too many topics in football, in soccer, that I don't understand. The objective was to finish first, and we are first. And now
Okay, I'm gonna leave it there because I want to watch back the rest of this with the members, with the ultras after the show. But do you have an issue with his response there, Rob? He went on further to say, for you not to say congratulations that we won the group, that is a little bit sad. Do you have an issue with that, Rob?
No, not necessarily an issue, but he does seem to always be confused by a question. Sorry, I got we're dog sitting, so we got a chorus of small dogs here in the house. But playing dumb, like Thomas says, he knows what momentum is in soccer. Like, that's not some mystery. The one thing about going into this game, it reminded me of the old Peyton Manning Colts days in their peak, when they'd be like 12-2 and they'd have a couple games at the end of their season and they'd already won their division, and it was, do they continue to play their starters and, win out the season, or do they sit them, protect their star players, and go into the playoffs? And that was like an everlasting debate. And I felt that way going into this game. It was almost like a damn if you do, damn if you don't. You make all these switches and you lose momentum. And to your point, like even France, like teams with crazy depth, making 9 changes is going to disrupt even the most talented and deep teams.
Exactly.
But like, so going into that, and so just to finish the point with the Colts, they didn't win as many championships as you would have thought back in those days because they had some early playoffs. So there might have been some rest. It's the rest versus rust, eternal debate. But I don't enjoy Pochettino playing dumb like he doesn't know what momentum is.
Okay. It's a lot of dogs. I'm sorry. There's a lot of dogs. Look, I don't care about his attitude at the press conference. Right. I think there is, and look, I've been in those. I've been on the side of writing about a team, maybe not quite this kind of situation where you've got a World Cup campaign underway and you've got this question of yellow cards and rotation and the game doesn't matter and what that means. I mean, it is an absolute luxury that the United States men's national team took care of their business in their first 2 games and could do this in their third match, right? And that's sort of establishes a level of, okay, we're good. And then if even it comes down a little bit, we're talking about a small bump to the confidence, if that even is a thing. I don't know if I'm cool with the media, and I've only seen this in one place, but I'm not sure if I'm cool with the media making this a thing. And what I mean by that is, so Henry Bushnell, an excellent soccer writer. He's at the Athletic now. He's been at Yahoo. I've known Henry and talked to Henry a lot of times. I wouldn't call Henry my friend, but I would say that as colleagues, there's a mutual respect. Henry Bushnell wrote that Mauricio Pochettino risks the vibes here. the headline, and he might not have written the headline, Henry himself. His editor might have written the headline. But after so much U.S. positivity, could Mauricio Pochettino's agitation affect the good vibes? That's what he wrote. That's the framing of this. This is the pull, not quote, but the pull element of the story from Henry that gets me a little bit, not mad, but annoyed. He did the one thing capable of derailing the mood. He got snippy. His mannerisms combative, sometimes in response to ridiculous questions, sometimes in response to innocuous ones. And then Henry includes that quote about, for you to not say congratulations that we won the group, that is a little bit sad. I don't think this is going to be that big of a deal. No offense to Henry Bushnell. And I also think that Mauricio Pochettino was probably doing something pretty smart, which is setting himself up as the defender of the players after a loss, right? The players aren't happy about losing. Everybody has to find that space in their brain to accept the fact that you lost and not let it impact what happens against Bosnia-Herzegovina, because it doesn't matter. Really, it ultimately doesn't matter. But of course, there's going to be a psychological impact of losing a game. So this is Pochettino trying to pull that back and trying to undercut. You know, we can talk about his choices. I really don't think he had anything different here. You could go all the way back to what Matt Doyle wrote today was his original sin, which was not bringing another number 6 to replace Tyler Adams in case Tyler Adams wasn't available. That you can be critical of, and ultimately it may be a big problem for the U.S. men's national team that they didn't do that. But in this game, with nothing on the line, who cares if Sebastian Berhalter wasn't good at the defensive part of the game? They still fought. They were still in it. Defensive breakdown at the end. Okay, we move on.
Yeah, Christian Pulisic getting megged at the end there is probably a little bit compromising for his ego, maybe just a touch. But when I was stewing on this game last night, I was thinking maybe this kind of pops their balloon. When you go on a winning streak or the results go in your way, you can maybe feel a little hyperinflated. And so maybe a loss kind of gets in their skin and kind of gets them pissed off a little bit going into the next round, because it's like maybe that does rub them the wrong way. These guys are ultra competitive. None of them want to lose at all in anything. And so I think that, you know, like I hail back to the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, like these incredibly competitive people will almost go out of their way to find something to get them fired up. So be like, oh, Turkey, they celebrated their winner like they just won the World Cup. That pissed me off, and that makes me want to double down on Wednesday when it does matter. I think it could add fuel to the fire. And because I was distracted by dogs, you asked me the question about Pochettino's response, and I didn't get back to you. I think that is a bit too snippy. Asking, be like, you should be. Reporters don't. It's not their job to be congratulating anybody, really, is it?
No, sure. But again, I think everything is a performance. Like I'm sorry if that sounds ultra cynical, but I think everything's a performance. I think the writers are asking things, and we're going to get to that with Jesse Marsch. Here in a minute or two. The writers, the journos are asking things that they believe will elicit a response. Right? There is this weird. You know, just to kind of go inside baseball a bit here on, are you okay? You good? Oh. Dogs around your feet? What's going on?
Yeah, the dogs are after me.
Okay. Not to go too inside baseball, but there is this thing that happens when there's familiarity between a press corps and a subject, right? And especially in sports, where ultimately the stakes are what? You know, we win some games, we lose some games, people are sad, people are happy, whatever. It's not like the world ends because a sports team loses. But there's this kind of thing that develops, a familiarity. We know each other now. I ask you questions all the time. You see me all the time. We're on a first name basis. It's like, hey, Mauricio, how are you? Henry, we're good. You know, those things are human, like relationship things. But then the job that each person has to do within the construct of that relationship creates a vein of animosity that can quickly become, it can become a problem. It can become a personal issue. But generally speaking, it's a performance. Right? One side is supposed to elicit response, and the other side has to decide, how am I responding to this? What message do I want to convey? Can I control myself and my emotions if a question does elicit a certain emotional response from me? Right? Am I able in that moment to kind of rein it back and say, okay, look, I'm not going to let them get a rise out of me, because that ultimately is a bad thing for me and my team. You know, Do we think that Pochettino got caught in that emotion in a negative way, or did he manage this and put on a performance meant to do a certain thing for the benefit of his team?
And
I know it's a lot of words to say, like, oh, one guy asked a question, the other guy, whatever, chose a certain kind of response.
Yeah, when we go bonus at the end of the show, MK Ultras can get into the bonus show at the end of today's program. We'll watch a little bit more of that Pochettino press conference, maybe think on that a little bit longer. But I think ultimately, this is all prisoners of the moment. All those questions last night was to serve the purpose of today and tomorrow's headlines and articles and stories and videos from all the various people covering the game. And come like Tuesday, Wednesday next week, momentum, all those things will be right out the window. And this will be especially if they win, this will be kind of a meaningless footnote in the end. I saw somebody earlier in the chat saying that these press conferences has essentially been a performance for the team rather than anyone out in the general public, and to kind of guide the way with the team and see what the coach's reaction, and that kind of informs what the player's reaction can be. I like this. This is a good comment from one of our ultras here too. Each game means something different. Nothing was on the line. Momentum is made up, but human nature is not like that. And I really do think that it'll piss them off more than deflate anybody ultimately. And everyone knew the score going in.
Again, the team was unbalanced more than like, oh, these players aren't good enough. And I had plenty of people in my mentions last night like, oh my God, our depth is so bad. What are we going to do? And I'm like, nobody who started that game would start, except for Weston McKennie. Nobody who started that game would start a knockout round match for the U.S. men's national team. And what that means is that you have a more balanced and functional team. Again, nobody in that team is a 6. And there, go watch back the video of the Turkey goals, and especially the first 2, and you will see where the deficiencies are. Now, some of that is, oh my God, if we have to name a center back who's not Tim Ream or Chris Richards, we're in trouble. Sure, that you could talk me into that being an issue, but again, they would probably have a better screen in front of them in Tyler Adams than the player who last night was deputized in that space, which was Sebastian Berhalter, who does other things very well and had an assist and a goal in the game.
And if you remember 4 years ago, USA didn't do enough into where they had to play a full team in that third game. And come that knockout match against the Netherlands, Tyler Adams was just about out of gas. This tournament, a little bit different, a little bit more days in between games, so a little bit more rest. But he obviously didn't play and should be fully fit when it comes to the big important games coming around. And a reminder before we switch topics that the round of 32, USA versus Bosnia and Herzegovina, Wednesday night, July 1st at 8 o'clock. Can't wait for that one. But we're going to talk about another American, the leader of the Canadian team, when we come back here in just 1 second.
We're not talking about these 2 Americans? We're not talking about these guys?
Hey,
no?
They look good. I saw... Yeah, they look like, what a couple $1 million of personal care products can do for a man.
All right, let's move on.
All right. Come back with us. Morning Kick Around. Welcome on back. Morning Kick Around here on Friday, June 26th. Both North American teams lost but advanced in World Cup 2026. And how are these coaches dealing with this kind of a strange situation? The stakes for Canada losing a little bit greater than the United States. Canada lost to Switzerland 2-1, meaning they were runner-up in their group, meaning they have to travel. They are no longer in the friendly confines of Canada. And Jesse Marsch answering questions, being probed. You're talking about earlier, being probed for reactions. And he kind of gave some fodder to the press when pressed about the availability of Alphonso Davies, whether they showed the urgency. The Canadian team, I would say, after watching their 3 games, I'm not sure if they're good, but they are exciting. And they definitely seem to reflect their coaches' emotions and energy. Like when they need a result and Jesse Marsch is up and intense and going rah, 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 doing his energetic thing, they, go balls to the wall and seem very dynamic and can score. They have a lot of attacking threat. But we saw in that third game when they were playing for the tie, not so good.
Yeah, I mean, against the Swiss, it was not. I'm not here to break down Canada, Rob. I know that's kind of how you set us up. That's not what I'm more interested in. Is the way that Jesse Marsch has handled himself after the fact with the Alphonso Davies situation. Now, we just got done talking about whether or not there are bad vibes or the vibes have been impacted for the U.S. men's national team because Mauricio Pochettino took issue with the way that the press framed the loss to Turkiye in the final group stage match. And I don't think that's really an issue, right? I don't really think that the way Pochettino handled himself, being a little frustrated by the discussion about momentum, whatever, is some grand problem. I'm not sure it's this. I think it's probably the same thing for Canada, but in the sense that Jesse Marsch makes his own problems, where I'm not so sure it's the same thing for Mauricio Pochettino. I'm interested in talking about the way that Jesse Marsch is dealing with. Okay, so Alphonso Davies, right? Undoubtedly Canada's best player, Rob. We all agree on that?
Yeah, or at least his most famous player. They've got some good ones, but the biggest, yes. Whoa, we just lost Jason Davis, but yeah, I would agree with Jason that Alphonso Davies is the biggest star and the best player. I mean, that was a long-winded way to say yes. I agree. Alphonso Davis is the Canadians' top player. Are you with us, Mr. Davis?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, sorry, I don't know what happened there. I'm trying to bring in some graphics. I screwed up. I had a typo. I'm trying to fix the matter. What the point is that Jesse Marsch was asked about Alphonso Davies reportedly being ready. He told the media that Alphonso Davies would be ready for the game against the Swiss as a substitute. He didn't say he was going to start. He said he'd be available, and Fonzie did dress. Now, after the game, the press went to Jesse and said, hey, what the hell happened? You told us that Alphonso Davies was going to be ready to play. And Jesse said, essentially what he said was, yeah, it was all kind of a head game situation. I was engaged in some subterfuge to throw the Swiss off, which he's not the first manager to do this, right? Like this has been part of the job for managers forever. They have always kind of played games with who's available and who's not. You could argue that Mauricio Pochettino did something similar for the game against Australia for the U.S. men's national team with Christian Pulisic, right? That Pulisic was on the mend, but not 100%, and yet Pochettino kind of said, "Oh, he could, he could." And then what? At day of the game, Pulisic didn't even dress. Now, again, like that's maybe slightly different than the way that Jesse handled Alphonso Davies, but it's of the same ilk. Now, Jesse said to the media, my main loyalty is to this team and doing whatever is possible to help this team be successful in the tournament. Obviously, I want the country to be wrapped around it, and some people get mad. He's saying people have gotten mad at him about the Alphonso Davies situation, right? About Alphonso Davies being listed as available and then not playing. If that's true, Canadian people, what the hell's wrong with you? Because I don't know why you would be upset. Like, why would you be mad? Unless you think it's directly related to the losing to Switzerland and then obviously having to go out of the country to play your round of 32 match, which I know is a thing.
I think they're cross about that. It all spills from that.
Well, okay, yeah. And again, like, I don't know. I don't know why you don't just trust your manager to handle this. So he says, we're going to do whatever we can as a group to make sure we get an edge. He says Davies was never going to play in the game, and that it was a decision that landed on him. Now, he said the decision was easy because we've had a plan. The only deviation of the plan is how I've communicated with you guys, meaning the media. So again, we get back to this relationship between the coach and the press. When you have injuries, and especially muscle injuries, there's a return to play protocol. There's science behind it. He did say that Davies will play against South Africa. He said his minutes will be capped as part of the rehab protocols. Then the question was asked to him, why should we believe you? And he said, that you think I'm a liar? Yeah, like I'm an American liar speaking to the Canadians? I would think that people would appreciate that this is a competitive environment and that we're doing everything we can to gain every little edge. Why is Jesse bringing his Americanness into the conversation? I don't understand that part. Does he think he still does not have the full trust of the Canadian people because he is American? And what was your theory, Rob? What is it?
Is Jesse Marsch giving himself away that he's actually a secret agent for the American team? Like he's actually secretly working undercover to erode the confidence in the Canadian team and derail their efforts at this World Cup. That's far-fetched, but it almost seems like him telling it himself. Did anyone ask him, like, is your American nationality compromising your coaching ability? He's the one that brought it up. It's like when there's a sign on the wall for some random "don't do this," it usually means someone did that random thing, like don't hang your suit on the sprinkler head in the hotel. There's usually a sign. Why would you ever think to do that? Well, clearly someone did because there's a sign there. And then sometimes if you're asked a question and you bring up something out of nowhere, you're telling on yourself, which is very odd. But kudos to the reporter for kind of putting them on the spot like that. Like you talked about reporters that are trying to elicit responses and them going, are you lying? Is kind of a wild. And obviously Jesse Marsch bites on stuff like that.
Yeah, I think Jesse is a very sensitive kind of guy.
He seems
right.
Like
I like Jesse for the most part. Like I think he's a smart coach, but he clearly has a public persona way about him that I'm not sure is the most effective way to go about this job. I mean, we'll see what happens with Canada's ultimate World Cup campaign. Like maybe they beat South Africa, and by winning a round of 32 game, the World Cup is therefore a success for Canada, and whatever happens next is gravy. I don't know. Looking at the way that the bracket lays out, you're gonna think, okay, in order to really call this a successful World Cup for a team that, by the way, has never won a World Cup game before this tournament, and had obviously clearly because of that never advanced out of the group. They're likely to get if they beat South Africa, they'll get the winner of the Netherlands and Morocco from the in the round of 16. That's going to be a very stiff challenge for Canada, right? They would be significant underdogs in Houston in that game. And again, part of the story here is that because they lost to the Swiss, now they have to go to the United States to play their knockout games rather than being able to be based in Canada if they had won the group. And again, there's some sourness to the vibes now around Canada. And whereas I think the U.S. situation is mostly a bunch of nonsense and who cares, and maybe Pochettino's a little too prickly, but whatever, who cares? This one I think maybe has some elements to it that could be a problem for Canada because this is how Jesse carries himself, right? Because he wears his heart on his sleeve, and what that means is it's always exposed. And if he's snapping like this, and if he's got this issue with the media, and he's talking about, oh, you don't trust me because I'm an American, how does that reflect back onto the team then when he goes back to the dressing room and starts talking to them about, let's go beat South Africa?
In general, it seems like his wheels spin faster than life in general. He, in one interview, if you've ever seen him do a sit-down interview that's of any length, he will win you over in the first half of it, but by the end of it, he's burned you out. And so he's recovered from other bad situations with the Canadian team. I think they'll be all right in this. I think the disappointment of not playing at home probably weighs heavier than what Jesse Marsch is doing in front of the press. Because imagine you're a Canadian, you had tickets to all these the knockout phase games in Canada, thinking that you were going to see your home country on the homeland, and it's hundreds to thousands of miles away now, and you're facing a tougher road. So I think this is all kind of like a little bit of we're talking about momentum. This is much more of a momentum impactor than what's going on with the USA and what happened with Turkey last night, obviously. And yeah, Jesse, he's definitely, like you said, he's wearing his heart on the outside almost at all times, for better or for worse. We'll see. I mean, I feel like I with the Open, I wasn't necessarily going in the way. I wasn't trying to do any tactical breakdown, but I was going to say whether Jesse's feeling aggressive and pumping up, I think the team will play that way. But if this issue and the having to travel and all that gets into him and he starts kind of getting into a negative, I think that could definitely have an effect, because you saw that change in the Canadian team from when they were playing for a draw and they played a certain way, didn't play all that well. And then it became obvious that they went down 2 goals to Switzerland and they needed to get a result if they wanted to stay home, get home cooking, stay in their home country. And all of a sudden, they were this dynamic, dangerous team that was going hell to leather to win. So I think that depending on how Jesse Marsch reacts to this, they've obviously done well. They've advanced for the first time. They've won their game. They've scored a whole bunch of goals in that second outing. But he will ultimately be judged on what happens next. And will he be able to push forward and bounce back from this ding in the momentum of the Canadians' progress in the tournament? I know the USA has Bosnia, but did we know 100% who the Canadians have next?
Yeah, they're playing. I mentioned it several times. They're playing South Africa in the round of 32, and they'll be favorites to win that game. So they're set up to at least get to the round of 16. But then, as I said, it's going to be Netherlands and Morocco who are playing on the other side of that little mini bracket. So they'll get that one of those teams in the round of 16 if they beat South Africa. If they lose to South Africa, and remember that Jesse's already signed an extension to stay with the Canadian national team. If they lose to South Africa, then that will absolutely be viewed as a poor end and ultimately a disappointing World Cup for Canada. And I'm sympathetic to the idea that the tournament wasn't set up correctly with Canada having to go out of the country to play knockout games because they are a host, right? But this was the proposal sent to FIFA. And if the Canadian Federation had an issue with the way that things were laid out for the tournament, I suppose they could have made a bigger stink and forced the American partner to maybe give up some of those knockout games. Now, of course, that's also up to FIFA. They may have pushed back anyway and said, no, we can make more money in America, so we got to play more knockout round games in America. I don't know. I think, again, Canada's been on the rise. Jesse's been part of that story. He may be a little sensitive, but he's a good coach, and we'll see what happens next for the Canadian national team.
Yeah, that extension means he's doing an excellent job as the secret agent indeed to get extended beyond the World Cup. But we are going to bring our attention to Major League Soccer stadiums. A couple notes to touch on when we come back here on Friday's edition of Morning Kickaround. When the Swedish team turned up to their training ground in Dallas, they were surprised at the state of things. Toyota Park, the home of FC Dallas, having a little bit of reconstruction done, but not necessarily what they were expecting when they walked in here. The field, the playing surface, unaffected, but the teams, players, and coaches very surprised to walk out and see this destruction for their training ground. Ultimately very confused and definitely not what they were expecting for their training environment.
So yeah, this is Toyota Park, Toyota Stadium, whichever one it is. It's a Toyota one in Frisco, Texas. This is home of FC Dallas, which, as you said, Sweden is using this as their World Cup training base. FC Dallas has been engaged in a construction project. It's brought the capacity of the stadium down to about 10,000, I think, while they do this. Here's what the finished product is supposed to look like. And if you've ever been to Frisco or you've seen a game on television, it very much didn't look like this. And it's one of the older soccer-specific stadiums in Major League Soccer, going back to like the late aughts, I think, is when this building opened. No roof at all when it was built, and an end that was, in the very much the way of things at the time, had a stage and basically no seating. I think they maybe put up some temporary seating at one point in front of the stage, but it was an okay building for an MLS 2.0 team, but it does not cut the mustard for an MLS 3.0 or wherever we are team. So they want to do this, and this looks amazing. Let's go, FC Dallas, catch up with the rest of Major League Soccer, but as part of the process, they built a temporary press box. That's what that is. That all that green stuff with the windows, that's the temporary press box that was just built. So somebody's wires got crossed. Some messaging got mixed up, and the demolition company that was coming in to do something. And I've heard that like actual explosives may have been used as part of this demolition process. So did they blow the thing up? Is this like an action movie starring Jean-Claude Van Damme? What's happening here?
Yeah, I saw something on Blue Sky, one of the American soccer journalists saying that it's a good demonstration of MLS's relationship with the press corps here, that they just blew it up right here. And Sweden's coach, Stefan Pettersson, the team manager, excuse me, Graham Potter's the coach, but the team manager said they were supposed to demolish something, and it looks like it fell the wrong direction. Luckily, no one was hurt, and they probably detonated it, and something went wrong. The players were a bit wide-eyed when they arrived. Oh, what the hell happened when they saw this? They didn't even know there was going to be any sort of work like this before they arrived to the stadium.
All right, so this is the FC Dallas spokesperson who said to The Athletic, the activity observed near FC Dallas Stadium occurred before Sweden's training session and was part of a planned and controlled demolition within an active construction zone. The work was conducted using a pull-down demolition method and did not involve explosives. Training proceeded as scheduled, and Sweden completed its session as planned. That is the most corporate-ass way to say, oh, we screwed up. Something bad happened. Something got blown up. Or not blown up. Torn down. That wasn't supposed to be torn down. It does look like a tornado, to Chris's point. If you've ever seen the destruction left by a tornado, it does look like that. So, I mean, not ideal. Like I said, I wouldn't have known that this was something just constructed unless somebody in Frisco, somebody who covers FC Dallas, had responded to that and said, actually, not only did they accidentally destroy this thing, it actually just got built. Like, this is something that wasn't supposed to. Yeah. Anyway, wild stuff for FC Dallas and Sweden.
Yeah, for all the talk of the wonderful facilities and all the teams loving their training facilities, I haven't really seen many complaints about where people are stationed. There's usually a team or two that express displeasure at wherever they were stationed, and I haven't really come across anything like that. But to see this team performing or practicing rather in what looks like ruins of something is quite a view. And I'm sure that the folks in Dallas, the FC Dallas folks, probably have been planning this and have been very proud and have probably been touting the fact that they have a World Cup team training there. And for the pictures to turn around and look like that, it kind of brings a kind of a smirk to your face. And a lot of these European teams have been, very aware of like storms and stuff like that happen in America. There's been a lot of videos of Europeans in general, teams and fans, being like, oh, these thunderstorms in America are crazy. And apparently some of the players were reacting like, was there a thunderstorm or a tornado here last night that we didn't know about? And they were all very, very confused when they showed up to a torn down stadium. But we'll transition from a stadium already under construction or redevelopment, but we're going to go to the northeast of the country where there's been a lot of World Cup activity in the northeast, but there's an MLS update up there too.
Yeah, we're going to do that. Can I also just throw in here for anybody wondering, the plan in Frisco is to finish this by 2028. So they still have 2 years of construction left on this building. So just if you're wondering, okay, oh, this looks so much better than the old one. They're adding the roof. It's going to be so much nicer. It's going to take them a while to get there. They're putting the money in. I respect the Hunts for that. Sometimes I'm confused about what FC Dallas is trying to accomplish, but that is certainly going to upgrade the experience there in Frisco.
Yeah, what are they trying to accomplish? This is like an open-ended question. Someone tell us, what is the goal? But yeah, taking the long road, like they're not trying to throw up a quick and easy fix, multiple seasons delayed, because I think they were reduced capacity last year, this year, and so it's like 3 seasons at half a stadium capacity. That's quite the
which says, look, there's 2 sides to that. One is, okay, this is obviously not ideal, and maybe you should have thought of this before. I don't know. The other side is like, it's clear that the Hunts are willing to put the money in. I'm assuming Frisco, this town, is not paying for these upgrades. I don't know what kind of deals they've got with the city of Frisco. But if the Hunt family, who own FC Dallas, are willing to spend 2.5 seasons eating that attendance drop, when MLS is very dependent for revenue on attendance in a world where their TV deal is not all that big, that says their commitment is there. And I don't think there's any doubt that the Hunts care about the game of soccer. And that flows from Lamar, who their dad, who was part of the NASL, whose name is on the Open Cup, who helped, who launched MLS into its modern era by building Crew Stadium, which has now obviously been replaced. Like the Hunt family, I don't doubt their commitment to the game. Whether they have the ambition to stay with the LAFCs and the Inter Miamis is maybe a completely different question. And it takes all kinds within a league, right? Not everybody can be the super ambitious, high spending club. You kind of need some clubs that are going to be in the middle and maybe find other ways to do it. And let's point out, just off the top of my head, so anybody in the chat that might be able to tell me if I'm wrong, you've got Weston McKennie, Chris Richards, and Ricardo Pepi, at least, who came through the FC Dallas Academy. So they have had a good track record of developing the kind of players that can reach the high levels of the game. And that's kind of always been maybe their main focus. And that you could argue, to the detriment of their success in MLS. But, in general, I think this is a good thing.
Yeah, I believe FC Dallas was at the bottom of the attendance table last year. Very solely because of this. And so big sacrifices made for possibly a bigger and brighter future there in Frisco. The stadium has the USA Soccer Hall of Fame as part of the stadium, which is interesting. I mean, that would be the Hunt connection, right?
Yes, the Hunts lobbied for that to happen because at one point the National Soccer Hall of Fame used to be in Oneonta, New York. It shut down just because of I think around the COVID period actually might have shut down. I can't remember the timing on that, but also like they just weren't getting the visitors to keep it going. All that stuff went into storage, and then the Hunt family was like, "Hey, we can build something here." So shout out to Jordan Buchholz and everybody over at the National Soccer Hall of Fame. I do love the National Soccer Hall of Fame. I haven't actually had a chance to visit the new facility there in Frisco. I have been a voter in the past for the Hall of Fame, so I'm very proud of that recognition of my career, that they thought of me when they wanted to when they were looking for voters and things like that. So I'm thrilled the Hunts care about soccer. I also understand maybe some criticisms of the way they've gone about running their MLS team, and Wes calling them FC Frisco in the chat speaks to, another issue, which is that in Frisco, which I think is about 30 miles from Dallas, they are outside of the heartbeat of the Metroplex, right? And this is why when we talk about Atletico Dallas, they think that they can make a mark within some neighborhoods, some areas of Dallas that aren't connecting with the team up in Frisco. And that's how American soccer has been.
Yeah, the landscape in Dallas in an interesting moment for sure, with this renovation trying to level up on the MLS side, while a brand new ambitious USL club trying to fill in an old cavernous stadium. All the while, there's a lot of lower league teams popping up all around the place.
You could do worse than looking at the Metroplex as a microcosm for the weird state of American professional soccer on the men's side. It's just, it's an MLS team, but they're out in the exurbs. You've got a team that's starting in this heart of the city, but they're going to play in the Cotton Bowl and try to make that look good. And then everybody's like, well, I got an idea. Let's put a team in, Fort Worth. And that's like, yeah, sure. You should also do that. So it's a wild situation.
And there's Rodeo SC too.
Oh my God. I forgot about Rodeo SC. Yeah,
plenty going on in Texan soccer, but we're going to catch our breath and come back with an update with MLS Stadium in Boston. Stick with us here on Morning Kickaround. First little tidbit of news about Everett Stadium. New England Revolution, of course, play their games and have played their games at Gillette Stadium up in Foxborough, but there's been big push, and there was a kind of a showdown at which location would be chosen for a potential soccer-specific stadium in Boston. Everett ultimately won out, but a lengthy, policy and what do you call it? Permitting process is the word I'm looking for. There's a lot of red tape, and definitely nothing is set in stone yet. Obviously, MLS and soccer fans in the Northeast would I'm sure, be excited about a brand new soccer-specific stadium, a modern stadium in Boston. But officials from New England Revolution saying that the club is now targeting the summer of 2029 or 2030. So this soccer-specific stadium for the Revolution not coming anytime soon.
So this is Brian Bilillo talking to Boston.com, and I believe this is Seth McComber, who is an excellent reporter on New England soccer, part of the Blazing Musket team, I believe Seth is. Good guy. Follow him. He actually had the news that Matt Turner was going to start for Matt Freese in the World Cup before anybody else, with his connections to Matt Turner, who's of the New England Revolution. So this is the element. I mean, there's some other stuff in here, and Bilello, who's been with the Revs since 2003.
Wow.
So he goes all the way back, to the pretty much the beginnings of this club. I mean, 96 obviously, but not too long after this. And he's the president of the Revs at this point. He talks about leveraging the World Cup and trying to sell people on coming to Gillette, and they're going to do a next match on us initiative. So promotional watch parties, free tickets to people who maybe are engaged with the World Cup who haven't been to Foxborough to see the team play. They've got a pretty decent team right now. Marko Mitrovic has done a decent job with this group. There's reason to go out and watch them, except it's Gillette Stadium, and we need a stadium, proper soccer stadium for this team. Now, you and I were just in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, which is on the southern end of the New England region, mostly because there's water not too far away in the south. And, there are people there, Tim McDuff can talk to this, who probably would have connected or have been connected to the Revs in the past, who either drifted away or maybe still are, Revs fans, but have adopted or fully jumped on board with Rhode Island FC because that's their local team. And I don't know what the Southern Massachusetts connections are to the Revs because it's not far away, right? Was it 40 minutes from Pawtucket to Foxborough? Right.
Something like
Foxborough is in the middle of that Boston, Foxborough, Pawtucket, Providence kind of region.
Yeah.
If you move the team to Everett, which is north of Boston, just slightly, but north of Boston, you have now created much more work for Southern New Englanders or people from, Southern Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut to get to games. And I do wonder about that part, but I also think that Boston as a soccer market is a sleeping giant. And if you put a proper soccer stadium in that region, it will explode and you will see some of the most vibrant atmospheres we have in this country. And that's not meant as disrespect to the Revs fans who have been there for the last 30 years, who have tried to do everything they can to support their team and create a culture around it. It's just to say the Revs are not tapping into a latent soccer fan base that exists in and around the city of Boston who are not making the trip to Foxborough.
Yeah, it's that equation. So if you move farther in the Boston direction, you lose the Rhode Island folks, but they're hoping that they increase Boston folks. I mean, it's a little bit of a catch-22. It makes it harder for those people in the different directions. But as we saw when we were in Pawtucket, I mean, they have a USL team, with their own stadium and all of that. So maybe that helps in a way, folks in that area kind of condense and focus on the Rhode Island FC. But there is some skepticism. Tim, the aforementioned MK Ultra, Tim McDuff up there in New England, not holding my breath. I might not even believe the Everett Stadium happens, even after they're playing games there. It could be, there's a lot of posturing. There's been a lot of false starts here. And like anything, construction or soccer player transfers, you believe it when you see it. And it's not until, they're playing games that would happen. But I'm sure through the process of working through this, they've done an equation, like how many more fans do we add and how much more do we add to our team if we're in this state-of-the-art, newest pro soccer stadium in this region that has some vintage stadia compared to leaving folks that have been with us since the start up in Foxborough.
So, it's been a very long time since I lived in Boston. I went to college there way back in the late 90s. So I haven't been in Boston in a minute. This is actually a reference to the school I went to. Nickerson Field is on the campus of Boston University. Shout out to Kate for that. No, they can't play at Nickerson. Nickerson has hosted professional teams in the past. Go look up your history. If you build this if the team is playing in Boston proper, and I know the Patriots are monsters in the region, even though they play in Foxborough, but that's because they won things, right? That's because they were the most successful NFL franchise of the 21st century and just went back to the Super Bowl, right? And so you're going to capture the attention of all of these sports mad people in Boston. You're going to make the airwaves of the sports talk radio stations in Boston. And although I don't know if it's the same way that I'm not sure it's true in any other place anymore, like WIP in Philadelphia and things, if the impact of sports talk radio is as strong as it used to be, I still think that drives conversation and creates the sports culture in a given city in a lot of places. And I think Boston is one of those places. And if you are getting more attention because you just built the stadium, that is a huge net positive for the Revolution in terms of capturing attention in the region, right? If you are getting mentioned and talked about alongside the Sox and the Pats and the Celtics and the Bruins, that's a big step forward. And I don't even think you necessarily need all of that to be successful because, again, I think there are lots of soccer fans in the Boston region who don't pay attention or don't care about the Revs because they feel like they're on the other side of the planet. And maybe Major League Soccer is inaccessible to them. And maybe the atmospheres at Gillette don't connect with what they think of as soccer culture because they're Brazilian or they're Portuguese or they're from some other place, South America. Right. So this, if they build it that way, this is a rendering. It does say, by the way, I like the disclaimer, for discussion purposes only. This is probably not what it's going to look like, right?
Did they make this for us? Did they make this solely for us?
They made it for us. If it looks like this, and there's a power plant next door, I'm not sure that's the best. I don't know exactly.
Oh, yeah, that's amongst the reason why it's going to take so long. They have a whole permitting process, but there's a whole section here that has to get cleaned up from the industrial past here.
Yeah.
Not an easy lift.
And here's our guy, Tulsa Mario, who grew up in Eastie, aka East Boston. If the team was closer to downtown, they would fill that stadium. Okay. I don't know what if he's saying Everett's a little bit too out of the way, right? We do know that there's we talked about the public transportation access and things like that, and they're going to have to really work to make sure that people can get to this stadium who aren't driving because, number one, I don't think you really want to drive in Boston if you can help it. And number two, that doesn't look like there's a lot of parking involved in this general outlay of the stadium or this general plan. But man, you know, Brian and the Kraft family and everybody's been talking about this for 25 years, right? That's why Tim is saying he'll believe it, and maybe not even then when they're playing in it, because it's been 25 years they've been talking about this. I've been doing soccer things for 2 decades, nearly. I'm almost at 20 years of my career, and it's been a topic of conversation, and I have probably written about it and talked about it 10,000 times in that time span. At one point, I was doing my American soccer radio show on Sirius XM, and Rob Stone, everybody knows who Rob Stone is, right?
Sure.
Rob Stone, part of Fox's soccer coverage, a guy whose soccer chops are illegitimate. He goes all the way back to the beginnings of MLS, broadcasting the game in the United States. He called me up on his own, of his own volition, to rant and rave about how the New England Revolution were wasting an opportunity to capture soccer attention in New England. He was so upset. And you know how long ago that was, Rob? It's like 8 years ago at this point. He was yelling about the stadium situation in New England.
So I got a question for you then. Through all those false starts and all the words you've written and all the conversations you've had, is this the closest effort to making it real than those other ones?
I don't see this, but I'm going to be of a mind with Tim here. You cannot get your hopes up at all, even when they're dropping renderings, even when Brian Bilello is talking to the media about how great this stadium is going to be, even when they're kind of putting a timeline on it, 2029, 2020, 2030, which is still 4 years away.
Yeah.
The next World Cup will be here before this thing is opened, according to Brian Bilello. You cannot let yourself get excited. You can't, because we've been burned too many times before. The Everett site is by no means the first site that the Revs have said, yeah, we're going to build a stadium. They had a spot picked out in South Boston at one point. I mean, like there have been so many of these false dawns. Now, maybe this is a step beyond those a little bit, but again, why would you get excited? Why would you get excited? No, I see the chat. I see a comment about DC United. DC United had a kind of a similar situation, right? It took forever, it felt like, for them. But at this point, Audi Field is what? 8 years old? Like
something like that.
The Revs are the stuck in MLS 1.0 team. I don't think they're spending like that anymore because they did open a state-of-the-art training facility and put a lot of money into that. They
do have a home base in a way that they didn't have.
Yeah, they do. They do have a very nice training facility, and they've obviously been competitive in MLS in the last couple of years. So it's not like they've just been passed by and they're the dregs of the league. But you see it in Dallas, right? If there's anything that those two teams have in common, FC Dallas and the New England Revolution, is that both these teams were MLS 1.0 teams who kind of are still trying to scramble and catch up. Now, Dallas chose to stay in Frisco and to renovate one of their their stadium, which is one of the first soccer specific stadiums, which I don't really blame them for building it where they built it, because at the time that they were talking about building a stadium, the city of Dallas was not interested. They weren't going to be like, oh, soccer. Yeah, come on. Let's find a spot for you guys.
Public attitude has changed considerably.
Public attitude has changed considerably. Now we've got teams building downtown stadiums, and you're like, well, it's a quirk of timing that FC Dallas got stuck in the exurbs. They're trying to make the most of it, right? And I did see a comment earlier that said, at the very least, you can say that FC Dallas' stadium did create the kind of building around it, the kind of development around it that all these teams promise, and that doesn't really happen. It did happen in Frisco. And Frisco is a growing town in the sense that it is a bedroom community for Dallas and for the Metroplex. So you can argue that they're doing the best. But look at what Chicago did, Rob. Chicago said, let's build a stadium. Where can we build it? The city of Chicago, inside the, no, of course not. In reach of the loop? No, it's got to be in Bridgeview. And then when the new owner stepped in to say, all right, I'm going to help this team in Chicago. Oh, this sucks. Nobody wants to go to Bridgeview? Well, I guess we're dumping Bridgeview. And instead of doing what Dallas did, they're now playing in a massive NFL venue with a plan now to build a proper soccer and what a game changer that's going to be for Chicago. So these are all those early MLS teams trying to figure out how to work their way to catch up to the teams who had the advantage of starting in the era when MLS was already grown out, that they could build a stadium or they could spend a bunch of money, or the valuations made it so that you can just kind of burst into the league rather than kind of have to slow play your way in.
Yeah, newer teams definitely had an advantage over the older teams. And just like the whole fact that like cities and teams across the country are dying for stadiums, while Chicago Fire working on their third stadium now, which is kind of wild. And just the fact that it landed in Bridgeview, which is one of the most difficult places to get to in the Chicagoland area. And now they're putting it in probably the smack dab right in one of the most like prestige areas, or a prestige open undeveloped areas in the city. It's just kind of wild how like 10, 15 years of public perception and soccer in the zeitgeist will change things. Quick tangent here, though. I saw on the DC United stadium thing. Would you say that was the least appreciated or the least upgrade of a new build stadium in this new wave of soccer stadia in MLS?
Well, I think unfortunately it's connected to how bad the team has been, right? Like the problem is that DC United didn't seem to capture any of the momentum off the stadium to be a successful team, right? The highlight of Audi Field is Wayne Rooney passing to Lucho Acosta for a goal in a game.
That's the only highlight I can recall.
They've had a couple of other moments, but it hasn't nearly been what it should be. And I think there's a lot of cynicism baked into American soccer fans that's really kind of hard to chip away at. And I think that's true for DC United, right? Remember, these are fans, a lot of them, who go back to the glory days of Arena and Echeverry and Moreno and all of that, and winning titles in RFK, which was a dump. Don't get me wrong. It was a dump, but it kind of became their dump. And they made DC United does not get enough credit for being the team that created a soccer supporting culture in the modern era of professional soccer in America, right? Like Libero Bravo, really, they were trailblazers, right? They created an atmosphere in DC that has been now kind of overshadowed by all these other supporters groups and the supporters ends and the standing room, the standing support and all that. But the problem, obviously, is it took a long time for DC to finally figure out a stadium plan. Where they built it is accessible, but not. Like, it's not city center, obviously, or it's not even, it's not in a downtown location. That would have been impossible in DC. There's, what do you even call DC's downtown? Penn Quarter, Federal Triangle. Like that wasn't going to happen. So then you build it where you can. It's not too far away from the baseball stadium, but it kind of has, it does kind of feel removed. It's not outside of DC, and you can get there fairly easily in terms of subways and things, but it's just a little bit extra. The walk is a little far, or the area is still there. There's lots of things popping up there, but it's still growing to the point of like, oh, this feels like a center of activity. And again, it's kind of overshadowed by the baseball stadium, which is literally right there. So I don't know. Like DC they'll get credit when they turn that place into a place where big things happen on the field. And to be fair, the Spirit are actually making that history, not DC United.
Yeah, that's a good point there, that the Spirit have definitely found more success and achievements in that building. But just when you see that on TV, there's so many like blank walls and empty spaces. And I feel like there hasn't been a lot of energy and creativity put into that.
It's poorly designed. And that's a thing too. Like that's where the cynicism comes in. It's like, oh, we got a stadium. And
then they didn't do anything else. They're just like, it's there, then that's it.
It was kind of, look, they did what they had. Look, you could argue that the owners of DC United, Jason Levy and company, were cheap. You can argue that, right? I think it's, again, that's in tension with how hard it is to build things in a place like Washington, DC, right? It's a hard place to build stuff. They built a stadium that is serviceable, but does not compare favorably to what Cincinnati or Columbus or Miami or even the Red Bulls, who's building is older, have, right? It doesn't feel that complete. And then you have PSU to DCU saying that the Metro's not close. It's a walk, right? It is a significant walk to get from the Metro stop, which services basically the baseball stadium, the Navy Yard area, to the DC United Stadium. Traffic is terrible. That's a DC thing. Traffic's terrible everywhere. But that it's designed in a way where the camera side of the stadium doesn't look good on TV, so it doesn't convey an atmosphere the way that some of these newer other stadiums do. I do think the supporters end in DC can be incredible, but it takes a special set of circumstances to create that environment. It's built in, it's oriented in a way where the cameras have problems with the setting sun when games are happening around dusk. Like, ask anybody who's ever broadcast a game from DC for DC United what that's like, and they'll tell you it's like the Jerry World problem. It's like the AT&T Stadium problem with the sun coming in through the windows. It's like, why on earth did you build it this way? It makes no sense. And obviously you can't unbuild it and rebuild it in a different orientation. So it's tough.
Yeah, and just to put a bow on it, we got a little bit off track with the DC United talk, but it's good conversation to have while we're talking stadiums. But Everett Stadium, New England Revolution officials saying that 2029 or 2030 is a more realistic timeline for the opening of that building. But we reached the end of our regular show. We are going to go into bonus here in a little bit. I'm going to rant just a touch on some local soccer stuff, but we're going to dive into the Pochettino press conference in full a little bit more.
Well,
you have time to become an MK Ultra right now.
Let's make it clear. Become an Ultra right now if you are not already an Ultra, so you will have access to Rob ranting about the state of broadcasting in lower division soccer in America, is my understanding, and us working through more of the very weird Mauricio Pochettino press conference from last night after the U.S. lost to Turkiye in a game that ultimately did not matter for their World Cup fortunes. So that's what we're teasing. Go ahead, Rob.
All right. So in about a minute or so, we are going to go into bonus, where if you are a channel member, you have access to that 1 minute from now.
50 seconds from now.
And shout out to all of our MK Ultras. You get access to the Morning Kicker on Discord server, priority commenting on screen, bonus content, including we have a couple videos popping up now. We're going to post some World Cup contributions, best of. There's some good stuff in there. But if you're not an Ultra, we will be back live on Monday morning with, various conversations and previewing the knockout game. And so thank you for tuning into this. And we are going to. All right. So we're going to go bonus in a second. And if you're not an Ultra, become one now. And until Monday, everybody be safe, be brave, and enjoy your soccer. Come on. All right.